What is good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Fundamism Podcast. I'm your host, Paul J. Long, and I've been trying to get this week's guest on the podcast for over a year. Now, part of that is my fault. It's all my fault. Who am I kidding? But nevertheless, guys, you are in for a treat. Before I introduce him, this podcast is sponsored by, as always, Charlie Hustle. But we may have a new sponsor after this one. CharlieHustle.com to learn more. 1kforkc.org is an amazing thing that they're doing right now to help raise funding for families financially impacted through COVID-19. Go to 1kforkc.org to learn more about what Charlie Hustle is doing to help others. Speaking of helping others, I know that our next guest is somebody driven significantly by helping others, so much so that he wanted to help me today in bringing a smile or a laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, President and CEO of Fareway Meat and Grocery, Mr. Reynolds Cramer. Look at this guy. Guys, if you can't see him, first of all, that means that you're not on YouTube, so you need to go check out our YouTube channel. My guy is dressed up in, it almost looks like a side ponytail. It's a delicious wig.
Yeah, I got it. I got that. You know, it took me a while to put that together.
What tune were you playing on that air guitar?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Reynolds is good, brother. It's always a pleasure seeing you. You know, you have probably, of all the guests that we've ever had, 110 plus, you probably have more responsibility and potentially pressure on your shoulders than any guest we've ever had. So that begs the question, how do you release? What do you do for fun, brother?
I tell you what, you got to do just like I did starting out here today. You can't just be in the, we're going to do this every single hour of my life and just act the same old way. You got to get crazy sometimes. And how you do that, obviously everybody can do it different. I've told you the story all the time. I mean, if it's me going down the highway, and I'm listening to some crazy tunes and I got the wind in my hair because, I don't have any hair. That's how I do it. I had a meeting the other day with our store managers and I said, who walked in here like me, listened to Five Finger Death Punch? I mean, right? And people are looking at me like, how does he even know who that is? Right? I mean, life's too short.
Oh, Reynolds, I don't know if you've ever laughed so hard that you get those bumps behind your ears that like physically hurt. You've started us off on the right foot, my friend. We crossed paths last year, actually 2 years ago, when I was lucky enough and feel blessed to have come in and spoken to half your team. I don't recall which, so we had to postpone one because of a snowstorm. So was it the meat market managers that I got the opportunity?
Well, yeah, and it started out actually prior to that, you spoke to Iowa grocery industry.
That's right.
That's how we met.
Yes.
And then from there, I said, I got to have more of this. I got to have more of this fun. So we had you come in to Boone, Iowa. And we had our managers come in, and it was a 2-day session. And of course, it's in the middle of winter, so the first day went off awesome. The second day, blizzard canceled everything.
Yes.
And yet, people have ever since that day talked about just how amazing you were. And what you did was you got people to walk out of a room and for the first time in a while think about a different way, not only to have fun, but just different way to think about life. Yeah. Right. And right now, right. We got to wear these masks all the time and we're doing everything we do to be safe, which is the right thing to do, but it's getting in our head, right? It's getting us a little crazy.
Man, this podcast is about you, my friend, and here you are just showering me with praise. So I greatly appreciate that because our first interaction, it's funny that you brought up that Iowa Grocers Association because I failed to remember that's where we met. I know we've talked about it before, but in this moment I did. And that was one of my first speaking engagements. I was very new and very green, as I'm sure you're well aware, because you've seen my progression, both as a human being and hopefully as a speaker. But that was a really interesting gig in that obviously heart of Iowa, one of my first gigs. And I will say that everybody was kind of reserved. And it took a little bit to understand who the heck is this guy and what's going on. But you, my friend, you and I were paired up together. And I asked you what you did for fun. And that's when you introduced the concept of putting on my wig and going out and driving my convertible and having a good time. And full circle, you invited me to speak with your Fareway market managers and meet managers. And so I am eternally grateful, my friend.
Well, and so how funny is life? And it just kind of cruises along. And here we were a week ago, and I come down to Kansas City because we opened up our first meat market. And I had the pleasure of carrying out a great tradition from Mike McGonigal. And now it's a Fareway meat market with McGonigal's Catering. And then we had the rib cook-off classic that's never been done before. They've raised money for 17 years for kids to adopt kids at Adopt Connect. But it was the first time they did this rib challenge. Of course, I love ribs, and I'm not going to miss a free meal. So I'm down there, and you're down there, and we're having a blast. And I think it was a great event.
Yes, it was a wonderful event, and I didn't know. So, of course, I just got off another podcast with a director out in LA, Reynolds, and he has this really strong affection for Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's where he grew up, and so now that he's out in LA, of course, Grand Rapids it's a completely different lifestyle, as I'm sure you're well aware. And so he just did a documentary in Grand Rapids, and I asked him, what is his next project, where it's going to be? He says, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'll tell you where it's going to be. It's going to be in Grand Rapids. And he just talked about his affection for the city. And I said, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because the Fundamism Podcast, as you guys are listening in, you understand that we have listeners all over the globe, but it comes across as a very Kansas City-based podcast because my affection for Kansas City. And so the reason why I bring that up is because growing up, I used to live right down the street from McGonigal's Meat Market. And we used to go in there and have a good time. And they had their meat counter and so many memories growing up. I did not realize that was the store or the location that you as Fareway purchased until you invited me to MC this event. So talk about full circle. The universe is crazy. Why'd you decide to get into the Kansas City market?
Well, when you hear about Kansas City from being an outsider, so if you're living in another state, you hear about Kansas City, you hear about Kansas City steaks, right? And smoking meat and all this stuff. And well, we're going to brag a little bit, Fareway Meat and Grocery, right? We're the best. We're the best, not just in the Midwest, but in the nation. And so why wouldn't it make sense that somehow we'd find a synergy down in Kansas City? Well, as I spent time, and I did spend a lot of time down there looking around, what I realized was we had an opportunity because there's nowhere else to go unless it was McGonigal's to have a fresh meat case that's cut fresh every day. Nothing's packaged, nothing's gas, all that stuff. And so why not? And the reception's been amazing. It's been awesome. And we actually signed another deal just last week, and we got a second one that's locked in.
What?
And so we're going to keep coming and keep growing. There's a lot of Iowa people that know Fareway. Fareway's been around 82 plus years.
Yes.
So they moved to Kansas City. I'll be honest with you, Kansas City, what an amazing town. It would be an amazing town to live in. The weather, just so much going on. It's so fun. It'd be hard to root for my Vikings down there because every time they play those Chiefs, they lose. But the reality is that it's just a great area. And so, I just had a chance to meet Mike McGonigal, and it was a great setting, and we had great discussions, and everybody's always talking about what are you doing the rest of your life? What's your plan? What's your strategy? And so, at the end of the day, I think we work together, and now it's Fareway Meat Market, and it's McGonigal's Catering. We got Randy Ross there that works there, and a lot of people know him. And so it kind of feels like we're at home. It kind of feels like, even though we opened up on March 2nd, which was right before the chaos of the world started, it feels like we've been there a long time now. It feels like we're home. So it's great.
Well, you fit in nicely. I got to tell you, I walked away from that engagement with several $100s worth of meat. And you, Reynolds Cramer, are my wife's new best friend. You gave me one of those tomahawk steaks with the massive Flintstone bone. And one thing I didn't share with you is above and beyond her gratefulness for the meat, she loves steak. She absolutely loves it, but she's always been somewhat fearful of cooking it because, people are so particular. She likes it medium. I like it medium rare. And she feels like she could just never get it right. But having all this meat forced her to get uncomfortable, if you will. And so she wanted me to express her thanks for forcing her to learn how to cook steak, in addition to giving her so much amazing meat. So, hey, so many things come to mind when I'm talking to you. I started by saying that you have a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure. And of course, some of that pressure we put on our own shoulders. But when I see an individual like you talk about Fareway. Obviously, it's a top 10 employer in Iowa. So, guys, Fareway is a huge deal. I mean, you operate in what is it, 6 states or
6 states and soon to be 7? Yeah.
Yes, sir. And have you announced the 7th?
No.
Okay, good.
So this is the first time you're even hearing anything about it.
I know, as well as your second store opening. I just saw you in Missouri. So, over 120 locations.
Right. In fact, tomorrow will be another one. We open up in Byron, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Rochester. So I'm headed there in the morning to open up that store.
Nice. Man, you're just constantly moving. You're constantly shaking. You're constantly grinding. I mean, over $1 billion, you're consistently working. How do you so many people are challenged, especially in the corporate world, of presenting themselves to be something to gain or to garner the respect of others, right? I got to be professional. I got to keep my eye on the prize. I got to always consistently be the best version of myself, or else people will think that I'm less than best. How do you manage fun and authenticity, like you started this session out, with the expectations of being such a significant leader, not just in Fareway, but in the state of Iowa?
It's hard. It's not easy. Believe me, it's not. I think the reality is that, we are all human beings, right? Yes. And so we all have our weaknesses. We all have our moments. We've all got these things. How you balance that, how you balance work, life, faith, family, all those things. It's to me, it's juggling.
Yes.
I'm constantly juggling, and I don't want to have one of the balls hit the ground. Right. And so to do that, I got to stay focused, but it means I got to focus on everything. Right. And believe me, if I'm not focusing at home, I'll hear about it. If I'm not focusing at work, I'll hear about it. If I'm not focusing, in my inner self about my faith, I hear about it. But it's not easy. But you gotta figure out ways, quite honestly, to get out of I get up. It's like right now. We've all seen the great movie Groundhog, right? It's a great Bill Murray movie.
Day, yeah.
In a way, we as a country right now, it's Groundhog Day every day, right?
Sure.
It's become crazy. You can't leave your house. You can't do this. So you gotta figure out ways to just, you know what? I'm not gonna go through like Chick-fil-A. I love Chick-fil-A. So we, Sheila and Benny and I, we take Chick-fil-A and we drive the car to some open area we've never been before. We lay out this blanket and we could have a picnic eating Chick-fil-A, right? It's like you never used to do that before, but now you do those things. So you got to change up your routine. You got to figure out a way to not go insane inside your head.
Right. Well, it's funny that you said that, because basically what you just did is, in a roundabout way, you define Fundamism, right? The fundamentals of a fun and optimistic lifestyle. We can obviously be very focused and deliberate in thinking about all the stuff that's not working, whether it's the political landscape or COVID-19 or the social divisiveness or whatever, the online learning of our children, whatever it may look like. It's easy to focus on all that stuff. But by inviting these things, by going out with Benny and Sheila and taking your Chick-fil-A and having a picnic for a brief moment, those challenges and that drama is mitigated. So I love to see that you are deliberate in bringing joy to your life. How do you manage stress? Like when you're the most stressed out, Like when you have anxiety or fear or whatever it may be, how do you cope with that? How do you manage it?
Well, I think most people would say, maybe in my position, is you just tuck it all away inside your gut and you let it just eat yourself within out.
Exactly.
So it would not be that weird for people to walk past my office and I've got a window and stuff, and they'd see me just laying on the floor completely in my suit, laying on the floor with my hands like this, my eyes closed, and I'm just laying there breathing a little bit. And then maybe I'm listening to some music just for 5 minutes, just to, well, I got to do this. Or maybe I go outside and just walk around the building 3 times. I mean, those are simple little things.
Yes.
I love, I put my lawnmower away the other day because we got a little bit of snow here yesterday, and I mowed for the last time. And it's a sad moment to put the lawnmower away. When I'm mowing and I've got my headphones on, it's a moment. And my wife she doesn't understand it, but it's a stress reliever to me for sure. I mean, so you got to find those things, right? Otherwise, your head explodes.
I admire the fact that in your position, you still mow your own grass, and the fact that it brings you strength is the reason why, obviously.
Well, so why do I mow my own grass? In fact, why did the first 3 years of my new lawn that I hydroseeded and made sure it was perfect, did I push mow for 3 years? Why?
Best at it.
I want the best lawn. I want, right? Right. Some people would say I'm crazy. My wife has said that many times about me and the lawn, but it's a feeling of, honestly, for me, it's a feeling of fun that I have a lawn that I could walk out barefoot at any time I want and roll around with my son or my dog or whatever and just have a blast.
You know what's funny about what you just said is my wife would say that I'm very maintenance challenged. Like I'm not a great handyman. I'm not good with a screwdriver or a hammer or anything for that matter. So we hire a lot of stuff out. Even when we didn't have money, I was hiring stuff out like an idiot. But nevertheless, what's interesting about what you just said is I hate painting. Like, you would think that painting, like mowing for you, would call me out as expressive and as loud as my personality can be. You would think that getting in a room and painting and listening to some amazing music like you would be awesome. But what happens is it's counterproductive for me because the music is great, but I am so particular, and like you and your grass, I want every nook and cranny to be covered. I want it to be so perfect. I'm not a professional painter, but I'll paint a room just because I know I'm going to do it better than the professional. And I think what it boils down to is pride in what we have, pride in what we do, right? Being focused on the task at hand and knowing that if we put our mind to it, we could be pretty darn great at something, which is you to the T. Starting at 16, you started working at Fareway stores. Is that an accurate?
Right. 16, carry out kid, sacking groceries, learn how to be a cashier, stocking the shelves, cleaning the bathrooms. That never really ended through college, after college, being an assistant manager, becoming a manager. When you're the manager, if you're not in there cleaning a toilet or mopping a floor or cleaning something up, showing your team what to do, you don't gain that respect. And so, and it's been awesome. Be honest with you, I've been in the office for now over 20 years, which is crazy when I think about it that way, which means I'm not in the store every day. And we talk about it all the time, how that's actually the worst part about this job is I can't be in a store every day with great customers and great employees. I got to be trying to make sure that that's all working right. The employees, the customers, that's what makes this job so fun.
For sure. Well, obviously it's been a really lengthy journey, and you're an individual that I could tell really values a great customer experience. based on the interactions that I've had, not just with you, but with many of your direct reports and staff and employees, they always have wonderful things to say about you, at least outwardly to me anyway. But what that tells me is that you're pretty consistent. And I know that Fareway has some competitors. Of course, you guys are closed down on Sundays, which gives all your competitors a chance to catch up. Is that right?
That's my saying.
Dude, I did just a hair of research. Just a hair. But I often hear it with all the organizations that I have the pleasure of working with, just about every organization out there, when I say, what differentiates you from everybody else? Consistently, the answers are our people and our service. Our people and our service. And obviously, I think it's really easy for us to say that, but it's different for people to feel that. When I go to Fareway, your website, Meat and Grocery, and I check out all the things that you're into, I see people and service regularly. Why does that differentiate you guys from everybody else?
Probably because we not only do we do it and live it, but it's real. It's not something we just talk about. I mean, isn't that the whole deal in life where, you could be a company, you could throw up a banner and you could say all this stuff and have, posters and a great commercial, all this stuff. But the reality is when you go, if that's not what it's really happening, then it's all BS, right? I mean, I like to think that it's such a culture that we have, it makes it easy. And then what happens is we're a huge company, but yet in every town and every actual building that we have, we're a small community. Yeah. So what we hear from our customers are, if you're in Belmont, Iowa, or Waverly, Iowa, or you're in Kansas City going to the meat market, this is our Fareway. The customers say, and the employees say, this is our Fareway. And that's how they feel. So when it's yours, you're going to take care of it. Just like if it's your home, yes, you're going to take care of it that way. When you greet people, when people come to your home to have a great steak dinner that you purchased at Fareway Meat Market, your wife is saying, this is our home. Come on in. This is the meal I cooked for you. Come on in. You take great pride in that. You welcome them. So that's what we do. And it's actually easy because it just feels right.
It's built into your culture, and it stems obviously not just top down, bottom up, but obviously it's a 80 plus years of culture that's been building up to culminate to this moment. And I will say that I got the opportunity because in Kansas City, when we first started partnering together on events, there wasn't a Kansas City location. So I never had the opportunity to visit a Fareway and never, to be honest, had even heard of a Fareway until I was brought in to do your speaking engagement, or we met at the
right.
Iowa Grocery Association.
You're kind of a sheltered guy though, right? You don't get out much.
Very much so.
You're in the basement every morning, lifting weights, stretching.
Well, you must be pretty sheltered too, because you said it'd be difficult to be a Vikings fan in Kansas City because every time you play the Chiefs, you lose. Well, like every time you play anybody, you lose, right? Is that?
Sadly, yes.
Speaking of which, I want to circle back to this Fareway experience, but how in the heck did you become a Minnesota Vikings fan?
Okay, so late 70s, went with family up to a game, season ticket holders, grandpa, dad, etc. And it was out in the old, in Bloomington, in the old Met, where it was outdoor stadium, where the Vikings played. So I saw Fran Tarkington, everybody, and Chuck Foreman, etc., and just loved it. And, who else would you root for? In Iowa, we don't have at that time, especially, didn't have anything. And why not? So, yeah, became a fan. And so
he's got props, ladies and gentlemen.
So here we go, baby.
He's putting on his Vikings helmet. Go check him out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. Now, is that autographed by someone?
Everybody, all the greats.
Randy Moss, is he on there?
Well, I got it somewhere, but
but it's not on there.
I don't know, maybe. It's just, it's just the Hall of Famers, Paul Krause, Jim Marshall and all these great players.
Kirk Cousins, is he on there?
Carl Eller, yeah.
Kirk Cousins, Hall of Famer.
No, I tell you what, every time I buy a quarterback jersey, I've got them all and they're terrible. So
same way. I'm the same way as a Royals fan since birth. I used to always get, any up and comer. So there was a rookie of the year by the name of Angel Baroa. He won rookie of the year. I buy his jersey. I don't even know that he made the roster 3 years later. I bought a Mike McDougal jersey. I bought all these jerseys and immediately they tail off. So I'm not a jersey guy anymore for that reason. So talking more about your culture, obviously the Vikings had a significant culture, not just in your family, but in their organization that you were attracted to. I got the opportunity to tour your facilities, several of your, not just your stores, but even your amazing, what do you even call it? Your warehouse production.
Warehouse, yeah.
And that tour was led by the great Reynolds Cramer. So I got some behind the scenes knowledge, but I got to tell you, I've been in a lot of stores in my life. I grew up in a small town, Osawatomie, Kansas. So a lot of convenience stores had that small local community feel. Casey's, you guys got Casey's up there, right? You ever had Casey's pizza?
So here's something about Casey's. So you don't know this. Obviously, you eat their pizza. Who doesn't? It's the best, right? So Fareway was started in Boone, Iowa. That's where I'm at right now. And so was Casey's.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So, So Boone, kind of a neat place for that stuff.
So they obviously got into the Kansas and Missouri market far sooner than you did, huh?
Well, they're a little smaller building. Yeah. But they've done a great job.
Yes.
They've done it. Terry, who I knew was the CEO for a while, retired, awesome person. Darren now running the thing, awesome person. They're doing a great job. Iowa's pretty unique. It's every state, of course, has their stuff, but Iowa has some pretty neat companies that started and then expanded and grew all over. So, but Casey's, they're doing a great job.
Well, and I think I recently I saw some statistic or something that said that Des Moines, Iowa specifically was like top 10 for startups and new businesses. So you guys are great. And I think it boils down to what you said, that community feel. Like when you go out and you start something, typically folks want to support local businesses, especially in the Midwest. And so when I got the opportunity to tour your facilities, I got to tell you, I walked in and it felt different. Like it felt definitively different from, Price Chopper or Hy-Vee or whatever. And it boils down to not just the look and feel of the store, right? The way that you guys have created your layout, but also the moment that you walk in, somebody makes eye contact and connection, which I value a great deal. And it's something that you live in your own life. Where did that come from for you? I know obviously this is historically a family business. Where did you get your general demeanor and love for the interaction of people?
I don't know what percent it's DNA.
Okay.
But, I think the reality is, so I went to Luther College in Decorah, and I had my freshman year of speech class. And like most people, terrified to speak and all that stuff. And I kind of went through it. And back in the day, they had the old, VCR that they're going to do a recording and you could watch it and kind of, critique yourself. And so I could see some of my struggles and what I needed to work on. And then I started thinking about it more. And I thought, how would I have a conversation just like we're having a conversation? What's the difference if I'm talking to you right now, having a one-on-one and feeling really good about it, or there's 300 people in the room?
Yes.
Can I have that same feel? And so then you learn some of the tricks to the standpoint of, how can you call some people out in the room and know some people and do some things. But the reality is, if you're sincere and you want to just talk about, what's in your heart, what's in your mind, it's easy. It really is. Now, in all fairness, when you do it a lot, it becomes easier.
Yeah. So, in anything, right? Painting houses, mowing the lawn. Right. But what I really appreciate about what you just said is, I'm not the greatest at a lot of things, Reynolds, probably not news to you. But I'm a decent speaker. And I think what has differentiated me in my space specifically is what you just said, is when I removed myself from thinking about speaking to 1,000 people or speaking to 500 people, and I reconsidered that as speaking with one individual and then with another and with a collective group, then it became a lot easier. And I was able to create real meaningful connection, which ultimately brought everybody together and wanting to know what the heck was going on or what they could learn, or even being willing to share themselves and open their hearts. And that's something that I've been surprised in our relationship, you and I, in your willingness to be open and share your heart. So much so that when we connected most recently in Kansas City at the Ribs for Kids event, you told me the craziest, most powerful story that I had heard in some time about the passing of your mother.
Right.
So can you, if you don't mind sharing, because there were so many like nuanced like notes to self or the universe or energy, whatever you believe in, that was just, it was an absolutely crazy story that really made an impact on me. And I was hoping that you would share it with our listeners as well.
Yeah, well, COVID obviously has brought so many challenges. I've got a family member that's going to have a baby here soon, my sister, and she's so excited. And yet, there's not going to be any visitors to the hospital room, and she's going to be fortunate to have her husband with her. But it's not like it used to be where you could have other people coming. That's just one little thing. But then you hear about so many sad things where people are in the hospital and they're sick, and it really doesn't matter if they're dealing with COVID or not. You can't get into these hospitals because they need to be so cautious and just all that stuff. And so when Grandma decided to move from Florida to Iowa, which she did so back just last August, so just a little over a year ago, we're thinking this is a great opportunity to be with grandkids and spend some time together and play a golf game and all that stuff. And so you spend August, September, October unpacking and doing all that. And then it's the holidays. And so she's spending time at the holidays at the house and she's visiting. And then she loved wine. And so at Christmas, for her to say to me, when I offer her some wine, no, I've kind of lost my taste buds for wine. I just can't taste wine anymore. I don't know what it is. And I think she's just a little crazy, whatever's happening. I don't think much about it. And then that sets some things into motion where then January and February come along and she's not feeling good. And she ends up going to the hospital and we're trying to figure it out. And so how blessed I was that we had kind of redone some things. So I had medical power of attorney. If you don't have that for older parents, you got to get it. It's so important. If they don't have wills, they got to get that stuff done. So many people don't plan.
Yes.
But here we are, and it's April, end of April, and she's been in and out of the hospital, and they're checking things, and the doctor finally comes back and says, "Hey, I'm going to do a bone marrow biopsy. I got to figure out something's not right. We can't determine." And so, boom, comes back with she's got a weird blood cancer, and it's something that probably had for a while, and yet it's just deteriorating things, and kidneys shut down, and he says, she's got probably 10 days to live. And you're like, how could this even happen this quick? And so on a Friday, I said to him, well, I'm going to pick her up from the hospital. He goes, well, you know what that means, right? I said, I do, but she's not going to die alone in the hospital. So, and then on that Monday, she laid in her bed. It was her 80th birthday. And so my wife and grandkids and et cetera got to come and be with her and give her a cake and all that stuff. And then it was just a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, deteriorate. I had some great hospice help from Methodist Hospital, and then from there, it was just a sad situation, her dying with me in her home, and you hear about that stuff all the time.
Yes.
And you have friends that have parents pass away, and you always console them and give them some love. And but when it happens to you, it's a different deal. And when it happens in 10 days time, it's a whole different deal. So I have lots of thoughts of how I could have done something different. I also feel fortunate that if she had stayed in Florida, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gotten to see her at all and be with her. So, the good Lord works in mysterious ways, sets the tone and the path for us all. Whatever your faith is, whatever you believe, it doesn't matter, because there's somebody bigger than us out there. And so I'm blessed that we got to spend the final time together. But, as crazy as it sounds, she needs to be buried out east. And, I can't go there. There's 14-day quarantines in certain states and just all that stuff. And so I'm still waiting to finalize all that stuff. But we did a small funeral that was my wife, myself, and our pastor, just the three of us, videotaped it for all of her friends, and then did a nice little picture collage video and sent that out. But, even having a funeral isn't the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just in a whole world of crazy. And, a week from now, it's going to get even crazier.
Isn't it?
Based upon the election, just how things go. And then what's going to happen into 2021 and a vaccine and just all this stuff. Right.
Right.
But it's what we do during this time is what I think differentiates us from everyone else. And so if you can find ways to get your focus in your mind and whatever it is. I mean, I was fortunate this morning. I had a couple of people that had to come over to do some projects at my house. And so my son, my little 2-year-old Benny, says, Daddy, outside. And I'm like, it's really cold. There's snow on the ground. Jump, Daddy, jump. I'm like, there's snow on the trampoline. He didn't care. 10 minutes later, he's filled with snow all over his coat and pants and his shoes, and he's having a blast. And we stood out there for a little bit. His face got all red, and then I brought him in back to Mom. But those are the things that can keep you alive in your mind.
For sure. And I think I said this to you when I saw you most recently down here for the Ribs for Kids event, that we had a neuroscientist on by the name of Cody Isabel, and he had a really powerful quote that said, adults are just kids in costumes. And I love that quote because it could mean a number of different things. It could mean you and I physically dressing up like you did to start the podcast. It could be the disingenuous nature of whoever we're presenting ourselves to be, right? But the one things for certain, our children can always remind us what it was like to have fun and to not carry so much stress and worry and fear and anxiety and all this stuff that you mentioned about even next week and beyond, the vaccine and all that stuff. So much of it is outside of our control. And yet we feed it so much energy that it starts to consume us. And I greatly appreciate you for talking about the passing of, you mentioned grandma, but it was your mother, right? And the kid's grandma. Okay.
Right.
And I know I hate to put people in a position where they have to feel uncomfortable or talk about uncomfortable things. But the most impactful thing in hearing you talk about that story is how humbled you were through the experience. And you even, you mentioned about taking speech class. And I don't know if you remember, but you told me just last week that the most difficult speech you ever did was the one with the pastor and Sheila and yourself to a room of nobody, saying your final goodbyes to your mother, which makes sense in terms of the emotional connection with your mother. But to take that one step further, presenting to the masses where nobody's there, right? And I just remember how powerful that was. But the most significant takeaway that I had is when you talk about all this stuff and what's going on, it's great to focus on all the things that make us smile, all the things that lift us up, joy, fun, fulfillment. That's Fundamism. But part of Fundamism too is reflecting and thinking about how did we get here and what would I do different? And the story of you being too busy to play golf the one time that your mom asked you to play and you just couldn't make it happen, that being the last opportunity that you had to play golf with her specifically, it really opened my eyes because we balance, right? You said, I'm juggling so many things. And sometimes that means that a ball will drop. And so figuring out a way to prioritize these things, knowing that life is so finite, is super important. So I greatly appreciate you opening your heart. We have so many things that give us joy in our life, including your 2-year-old son, Benny, which I got the opportunity to see a video of the other day. So a 2-year-old, you decided to have a child at a late age because I know that you're a young gentleman, but from what I understand, like I didn't know that you wanted another one in the mix. How is Benny bringing joy and youth to you?
Well, I got to say, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I've got a daughter that's 21. She's autistic. And in fact, this Friday, just a few days away, she gets to move to a new adult group home in our town. So that's an amazing thing, and getting the help that she's going to need as an adult. My son, Zach, who's 16, he's a sophomore in high school. He's driving for the first time. That's a whole crazy thing to me. He's doing great. So you'd think, yeah, I mean, I'm at that stage where a couple more years, I'm an empty nester like many of my friends, and you can just relax, have a cocktail every night, no worries. You're still going to have a cocktail, but the reality is I got to stay a little more focused, because with a 2-year-old now, this guy is just all over the board. Oh. And what's interesting is Sheila said something to me the other day, which I think is helping her get through this craziness. And that is, Benny is so innocent. He's a 2-year-old. He doesn't know about COVID. He doesn't know about the world. He doesn't know that not being able to go and run around the mall right now, as an example, is something that like he's missing. He doesn't have any idea about that. So imagine all these kids that are going to grow up as young kids right now and look back and go, yeah, I was a kid in COVID. I didn't even know what was going on.
Exactly.
So the whole idea is, how do you grab that innocence? How do you grab that fun, excited? He went potty today in the potty, and we did the potty dance. I mean, all that fun stuff. And, people say it's going to keep me young to be able to be doing that. And then they laugh, of course, as I walk away, and they say, well, I'm glad it's not me. But the reality is, I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very blessed. So, he's been amazing to our family. And it just simply means that my future is going to be different now, from the standpoint of, one day, if I'm not doing this Fareway job anymore, no matter if I'm doing something else or not, I'm going to be able to maybe go to a ball game when he's 16, if he's doing that, or a music event or whatever, where it's been a little tougher before to do that. So, pretty blessed.
Prior to having Benny, were you as willing to be childlike and lighthearted?
Well, I think I've always had fun my whole life. Okay. And the difference between you and me is you've been having fun your whole life too. You probably didn't get in as much trouble as I did.
Fair enough.
So I was the kid that
$1 billion company.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, as a kid, I was the kid that I always had to ride the front of the bus, right? Because I got in trouble in the back throwing stuff or whatever. There was all kinds of stuff. I laughed. I've been fortunate to have a couple presidents of Luther College visit me before and do our warehouse tour like we did. And I've always chuckled, because I say, when I was going to college, if I had to go to your office, it wasn't a good thing. So because I wasn't studying enough, maybe. But no, I think having fun is I mean, if you don't, I actually talked to somebody the other day. I saw somebody, and after talking to them a few minutes, I left, and then I decided I got to do it. So I went back to him and I said, why do you hate life so much?
Boom.
I mean, they're just so bitter and upset. And it could be a situation that something pushed them there.
Sure.
But you know what? I just called a friend of mine today. His company downsized. He lost his job. I told him, I said, you call me anytime. I'll help in any way I can, whatever it takes. And this gentleman said to me, you know what? I could look at this as it's the end of the world, or it's the beginning of my new life in the world. And he said, that's the way I'm going to look at it. And so isn't attitude, isn't that everything you talk about fundamism? I mean, those things are the building blocks of having a great life, or just going around bitter and upset about how life treats you.
Right. For sure. I know how I'd feel if I wasn't gravitating towards what give me strength. So I make a conscious choice. I mean, we have dark days. We talked about those, right? We have challenging moments. And I think that's sometimes where I struggle in conveying this message or this philosophy, is I don't want people to think that this is the benchmark, right? Because I specifically could be very overwhelming for a lot of folks. And I'm not asking people to be wild and crazy. I did get in a ton of trouble. I was in school suspension multiple times. I consistently had parties in the morning before school where we had 200 kids in my house. Unbeknownst to me, the principal had called my mom and said, do you realize that all these kids are at your house? Because our house was right across the street. So I was consistently getting in trouble. But what I found is, if I don't gravitate towards things that get me to smile or bring joy to my life, then I can have some really dark days, and I can nap more than I should be, or not be as present as a father as I should be, or not tell my wife that I love her as much as I should. So what I'm doing is very deliberate, but as you, the Fundamism Podcast listener right now, is listening to Reynolds and how he carries himself, and listening to me, please note that we're not saying that you should be like us. What we're saying is try to find whatever this looks like for you, because the opportunity to have more joy, fun, and fulfillment is out there. Now, I know one of the things, Reynolds, that lifts you up, that makes you smile, is giving of yourself with zero expectation in return. And so whether it's the Rib for Kids event or, Variety, or I know that you're involved in so many different charities. Where did that come from? And you had mentioned that you have a daughter, 21. Forgive my ignorance. Her name one more last time.
Ashley.
You'll never have to tell me Ashley's name again. So Ashley has autism. How did that shape you and your willingness to help others through challenging times?
So imagine I'm the store manager of a Fareway store in Des Moines, and I'm working in the aisles, and I'm stocking shelves with my crew, and doing all what you do. And I hear this young adult or child with a parent in an aisle, and they're fussing, and they're having something going on. And my mind says, well, geez, can't you control your kid a little more? What's your deal? Are you a bad parent, right? Or what's your problem? And then you realize that that child or that young adult has a special need of some nature, something going on. And then, of course, you feel like, well, I'm an idiot, right? I'm
a terrible human being.
I'm a terrible human being, right? And then you walk away, and you're like, okay, well, I had that moment, and I learned something. I just got to be a little more cautious when I see somebody or think about or whatever. But you don't really know what they're going through. You don't know what the parent's going through. You don't realize that parent actually getting out to the grocery store, and they have to take that child with them because they can't leave them alone, because they've probably exhausted all their funds with medical issues and medicines and all these things. So they got to take them to the store. They're just trying to get out of the house. They're trying to do something. Maybe they're trying to teach the child about, being able to use coins and purchase something, all these types of things. You don't realize it until boom, you're into it. You're dealing with, a child that has a feeding tube. You don't understand what other people go through. Now, what's unique about it today, I think, is that we live in a world where there's a little more acceptance overall. Yes. That Hey, there's a lot of people out there that have differences, that have, special needs of some nature, a lot of kids, etc.
Sure.
And there's a lot more tools and avenues to get help and learn and be in groups and be able just to talk to another parent that understands what you're going through and all those things. So, but I think that's why, I grew up in a family that did a lot for charities, and a company that's always done things for charities. But now, as a father that has a special needs child, being able to be in my position at work, being able to help shift some things and guide us in some directions, I just love giving back in some way. And it's not just about throwing some money at something, right? It's not, I can write you a check for $100 to your cause or whatever. It's actually, how can you step into that window of the opportunity and be a part of something in any way, shape, or form? So when I've been at events where we've gotten to give a specialized bicycle to a child that, can't walk, but yet can be in a bike and be helped to learn how to ride that bicycle with their sibling. And I get to, help push that bike around and be with that great child at that time and see the face light up. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And there are many groups out there, many organizations. Variety of Children's Charities, one that's really unique from the standpoint of they raise money every year and then they give it out to all the charities. Yes. And so they help. But there's a ton of them out there. You've shown me a few that you work with. And so what's so fun about people is that even when they're having a tough time, they got a heart.
Yes.
And so, a lot of people, sometimes the only good thing they can do one day, because maybe they're in not a great situation, or they're feeling it's Groundhog Day or whatever, is they can give something to an organization that's going to make a difference. And that gives them that peace in their heart that just, it's like, I needed that puzzle piece to kind of complete myself today.
Well, what's interesting about, I got the book as we start to wrap this thing up. I know you're looking for yours. Look at you.
I got my book too, baby. Hey, is yours signed like mine is?
No, mine's not signed. Who's that yahoo? So I got this out because, oftentimes, so obviously Noah's Bandage Project means the world to me, pediatric cancer research. I'm very familiar with Variety. We have Variety KC down here as well. What's interesting about that, we've raised over $1 million for pediatric cancer research and over 6 million individual bandages for kids going through the struggle. But that is something that's a byproduct of all of the activity and all of the greatness that we've got to be a part of. But to your point, I have felt so amazing being a part of something, a culture of kind-hearted individuals that set aside ego and set aside drama and all the stuff that we're going through to give to something or somebody else. And more important than money or physical Band-Aids, just energy. And that 6-year-old boy taught me something. And that was that, donating or volunteering for a cause could actually bring a ton of joy into my life. So that is number 13, Reynolds. Number 13, donate or volunteer for a cause that moves you. So that, amongst many other reasons, obviously Reynolds Cramer, is why I wanted to invite you on the podcast. You and I have similar spirits. I love your willingness to be fun, to be authentic, to set aside your fear of judgment, and to lead people in a manner that says it's okay to be me, and then lead with your heart, not just for your own personal heart, but in the heart of others and donating time and to causes that move you. So, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. And our journey obviously has only just begun, because we will be going to a Chiefs game relatively soon. I will go up to a Minnesota Vikings game when you guys get a better quarterback. I should stop talking about him so hatefully, because you're the type of guy that might have a relationship with Kirk Cousins, and then boom, now all of a sudden you've lost an endorsement deal, Hey, one last thing before we wrap up. one of the things that I'm fascinated by about you, and something that I've just scratched the surface on, is your strategic mind, right? We kind of talked a little bit briefly about, some ways to get Fundamism to the masses, or the growth of Fareway and all that stuff. And so this strategic mind of yours, it's so fascinating to me, because I know that it comes not just through success, but comes from failure as well. What was the most challenging business moment that you had?
Well, I've had a few of them.
That one that you can actually talk about on
right.
I'll talk about anything, Paul.
Well, there's different ways,
personally or professionally.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to look at it from a business standpoint. Sometimes your heart says, I don't want to make this decision. If it's I got to close a store and relocate, or if it's I got to let someone go, or if it's I got to demote someone, right? There's times where your heart says, I don't want to do any of those things. And so then it's about having that conversation. And those are tough conversations. They're tough to accept. What I do know is that when you make difficult decisions, no matter if you're the one making them or you're on the other side, once they're made, it's like, okay, well, that's over now. So let's move forward. And what are we going to do, and how are we going to make that look? Sometimes a decision is actually, it's a way to just get somebody to finally go, okay, I'm glad we're done with that.
Yes.
And let's move forward. So tough decisions. The saying that was said to me many years ago by my dad, and it's so true. And I've said this to my son. I've said this to other people too. Big decisions make big people, and big people make big decisions. So the reality is that if you think about it that way, everything we're doing, we're shaping us to be better people in the future. So you mentioned about you're not great at anything, or I said those words, right? Here's what I say all the time, and this can come off wrong, but if you hear how I say it, you get it. I'm good at everything. I'm just not great at anything.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I mean by that is, I'm good enough. You want to go play softball tomorrow? I'll be okay, right? You want me to help make some business decisions? I'm going to be okay. But what I try and do is surround myself with great people. So I know that I'm not the lead singer in the band, right? But you know what? I could play the drums in the band. I can play with any band, right? So I got to make sure I have the right lead singer, the right bassist, all those things. That's what I think is unique. And it's not just about business, it's about life. You got to surround yourself with the right people, the right opportunities. You got to get people that are going to tell you, hey, dummy, what are you doing right now? Right? I mean, you can't just put people around you that, oh, you're great. You're great. I mean, so it's all about having fun and living your life to the fullest. So if you haven't gone out and gotten this book yet, I know you can get it on Amazon. It's a great book. If you haven't bought a great ribeye in a while, you can go to fairwaymeatmarket.com and get them shipped right to your house, from any state. I got to throw that plug in.
What a powerful close. I mean, everything you just said was a powerful close. So listen, Reynolds Cramer, you are just an absolute stud. I appreciate everything about you. I really believe that our paths are going to cross quite a bit. And I'm even going to offer up my services to you. I know that as we grow older, our circle gets smaller. I know that you potentially need somebody in your life to fill this void. So if you ever need somebody to call you a dummy, you reach out. I got you, brother.
I'm sure it's going to go to voicemail at first.
That's right.
Right.
Hey, in closing, you got any words of wisdom? Any last plugs you want to make, my friend?
You know what? Number one, get out there and vote. It's coming up. And number two, just be open, armed, and love everybody, and try and get along, no matter what your views are in the world. You can be right and you can be wrong, and so can everyone else. Just respect people. Just respect people and have fun.
It's like Jackie Moon said, everybody love everybody. Reynolds Cramer, we appreciate you being on. To the Fundamism Podcast listener, we greatly appreciate you. We couldn't continue to make moves in the community and showcase how to create fun for others without your support. So please leave us a review on Apple iTunes. Go out and have some fun today. Create some fun in the lives of others. And until we catch you on the flip side, deuces, ladies and gentlemen.